Did you know that less than 15% of the books published each year by traditional publishers are by people of color? Well, on Girls Talk Books, we uncover the truth about diversity in the publishing industry and celebrate the authors and industry trailblazers who are changing the game, sharing their wisdom, and inspiring the next generation of storytellers. If you are an aspiring author, a publishing professional, or just someone who loves the power of a great story, this is the podcast for you. So grab your notebook, your favorite drink, and get ready to celebrate the power of representation in publishing. This is Girls Talk Books, where your voice matters. Let's go. Today on Girls Talk Books, we talk with Michelle Easley, the founder of Positive Push Press. Our topic today is filling the void in publishing. Positive Push Press is a Christian publisher that offers a variety of services, including publishing, author coaching, editing, cover development, ghostwriting, and more. Let's welcome Michelle Easley. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for joining Girls Talk Books.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you.
Yes. I'm excited because we also have a mutual friend, Aubrey Avery, who connected us. And Aubrey has been like a great mentor for me since I met him. He's always connected me with amazing people on LinkedIn. And he was like, you need to talk to Michelle. She's a publisher. She does a lot of great things. You guys would be good friends. So we connected and we did. We hit it off and it was great.
Absolutely. Aubrey is like one of those rare gems of people that you find that he knows people from every walk of life. I met him so many moons ago. And we actually met in kind of dire circumstances because we were both out of work and looking for work. And we met back then they had job placement firms. So we met at the job placement firm, but he has always been such a positive person and just an inspiration.
He is. People have like the strengths test. And I know on mine it has connector, but he's like, that has to be his top strength is connecting people. Like that's his thing. Well, thanks again for joining. Today, we're going to talk about filling the void in publishing. You and I were speaking about how we both have our own self-publishing consulting firms. I'm more of a consultant, but you have more like a publishing firm where you work with the authors and take them through the whole process. And it's called Positive Push Press. Tell us a little bit about how you got started with Positive Push Press.
Well, it's a very interesting story. Many years ago, I was volunteering in a church and we had a group of girls that we would mentor. So this was back in like 2005, I would say, when we started, my mother and I. And so we noticed when we went out looking for books to teach us, like, how do we get these girls' attention? What do we do? There was nothing there. So we wrote down and documented and archived everything we did with the girls. And we're like, hey, if we're having this problem, other people are probably having this problem. So we thought, let's create a book. So I sent it out to all the big publishing houses, sent it out to the literary agents. And I was really shocked and surprised to learn that they said, this will never sell. Nobody's going to buy a book about mentoring Black girls and mentoring Hispanic girls, which happened to be the girls in the community we were serving. And so after, we were like really disappointed and depressed. But after that, we were like, you know what? Okay, so if it doesn't exist, we'll do it. And so that's how I started. I started publishing with my mother. She and I wrote the book and then we published the book, and we actually went around like with the book in the trunk. We went to different churches, we went to nonprofit organizations, and we went to just regular everyday people, mothers, talking to them about, how to mentor their girls. And it was a huge success. Well, for me, because I measure success by, how much we impacted other people. And that's how I actually got started with Positive Push Press. And in my mind, like we all need a positive push. And that's how I came up with the name, because these were girls that were just like in the community. They kind of were following the boys to this church because they had a basketball ministry. And then we kind of just like hanging out, and they just needed a push in the positive direction. And so just based on that whole mentoring thing, that was how I got into publishing.
Okay. So what are some of the things that are in the book that you're teaching girls, or how does it connect differently with girls of color than maybe, white girls?
Well, actually, that book was published in 2008, so I'm sure that things have changed, but maybe not so much. But we talked about things about like setting goals. We actually have a section in there about how to take care of yourself. If you happen to be in a situation where you don't have a lot of money, like household items, how those can have served multiple purposes, like baking soda to brush your teeth, just things like that. And also, it is a Christian-based book, so we do go into like spirituality and it's called Gems, Gifted, Elegant, and Magnificent Motivated Sisters. And really just helping them understand that just because of what they see, their environment that they were in, that they could actually soar beyond that. Like just because you're living in something that you feel like is not a good space or not a good place, or you're kind of working really hard, or you're seeing your mother, she's going out to work at 8 a.m., she's coming back at 10 at night. No, that doesn't have to be your life. You can move in a different direction and have whatever you dream of.
For sure. And so your mother was there with you. Some of their
Yes.
mothers aren't there with them. So tell us a little bit about some things that you learned from your mom growing up that maybe you're helping these young girls with as well.
Well, my mother is really a person that she always says, if you see somebody that needs help, a lot of people say, oh, we're going to pray for you, we're going to pray. But the one thing that sticks with me about my mother is she said, there's action in prayer. It's not just words that you send up to the Lord. Of course, you do that. But she was like, we're going to have to move with our feet and our hands to make things different. So she was just always encouraging me and my brothers. I have two younger brothers, that when we saw something going on, somebody wasn't, as fortunate as we were. We weren't rich now by any means, but she always just said, you take what you have and you use it. So you don't just sit around talking about, oh my God, these girls are like hanging on a street corner, they're fighting, they're this and they're that. But she's like, okay, well, what are we going to do to solve that? What can we use the gifts that God has given us to help them do that? And so that's pretty much, something that stuck with me and really pushed me to put that book into print. And since then, I've published books for other authors as well.
Okay. And then what area did you grow up in? Where did your program start? What church?
So Atlanta, and back then it was Christian Fellowship Baptist Church, but that's actually like in Riverdale, Georgia. So that's where I was at the time.
Okay, awesome. Now, have you, since the book has come out, been in touch with any of the girls who may have been in the initial program or have the initial book?
No, unfortunately not. It's just been so long ago. And there was a nonprofit associated with that, but that has since been dissolved. So unfortunately, I don't know where they are. But when I was in it and doing it, the girls would like actually come to the meetings. Like there were some girls around the corner fighting at Popeyes, and we told them, stop. We want to bring you all to the church with us. So, while we were in the process, it was phenomenal. It really, really was. But unfortunately, life happens and things kind of just didn't work out with that endeavor. Well, they worked out, but it had to end.
Right. And it may be years later that you'll hear from some girl or somebody will say they were in the program and you're like,
Right.
you just never know. You
Yes.
never know. I have a program I started in 2008, the Merge City Explorers, and it's the same thing. You may not hear for years how it impacted them, but
Yes.
it definitely will. I'm sure those seeds were planted for sure.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. That's wonderful that you have such a program. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the authors you work with. So now you have this project you and your mom started. You decided to create your own publishing company because, and that's the one reason why I wanted to start this podcast. There are people in the publishing industry who don't see our stories as valuable, or they may not see the lessons that we're trying to teach our students or our kids, and they may not feel that that might be important to them. Or they may not feel the way we're sharing the story is the way they're comfortable with, them listening to it or telling it. I was talking to one author and we were talking about how many books are published that have to deal with sports, music, right, dancing, jump roping, right, Kwanzaa, exactly, the stuff that's like the normal everyday things that everybody's like, oh, all black people do this, Right, but when you're saying like, a book I'm writing with my son, Going Fishing with 5 Generations of Men, they're like, yeah, no, nobody wants to read that. It's like, really? Exactly. So yes. with Positive Push Press, now you have a platform that your book is able to go out on. And how did other authors find out about you, and who do you help publish? Tell us a little bit about that.
So basically, I am a Christian publisher, and my mission is really to inform, encourage, empower, and equip people for positive change. Really want to transform how we're living today. And they could really find me on the web. I get a lot of referrals just by word of mouth. So I published Dr. Zerrick Clinton's book, was called The Power of Popular Culture, History, Music, and Visual Imagery. But when you were talking, that was like playing in my mind, because here we have a PhD visual artist, an accomplished visual artist, a teacher, an educator who really cares about students. And, some people think like, well, who wants to read a book about the power of popular culture? But he's taken all of his expertise and put that in a book that educators can use to really really work with their students to bring in popular culture, analyze music. What are the lyrics saying to students? Is it all positive? Is some of it negative? Analyze videos. It just goes really deep to kind of help students develop their critical thinking skills. There are a lot of citations in there. The book is based on a lot of research. So I think it's a well done, very thorough book. But you're right. I mean, people are like, oh, Black teachers, are they going to read such a heavy book? And it's not really heavy, but it does have research in it. So some people, like you're saying, I was just really chuckling because you're right. If it's not about we're going dancing or, just those regular topics, it's like, okay, Black people don't want to read that. And then the other author that I recently published, Michael Allen, wrote a book, 31 Days of Surrender, Respecting Life Every Day. And he is a professional pharmaceutical executive. He retired and he decided that he wanted to write a book to help really sort of tackle the problem of gun violence and encourage people to really be more positive and loving in everyday life. So again, that book is also written where parents can go through it. There's like an action plan, planning for when something happens. How do you direct your child to not choose violence, but to choose some calm manner of dealing with a conflict? So he talks about conflict resolution. It is also a Christian book, so it's biblically based. He has scriptures and reflections. So these are topics that sometimes unfortunately people don't just generally think like, oh, two Black men are writing about these topics, and sometimes people think, oh, they're not going to be interested in that. It's not an action packed whatever. So I just feel like it's really important for us to own our own stories and our narratives and just get them out to everybody, because everyone that has a story is a valuable story and is written for someone else to read and to hear.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, like, having your own publishing company helps us control that narrative, because if they feel, these agents and literary publishers say, nobody cares about that, or they may care about it, but they don't want to hear about it from us. They may want someone else to talk about the problems in the Black community who don't look like us. And they have, they push that project. I've seen that several times. I was just looking at something on LinkedIn where a Caucasian woman was like, I'm so excited to do this program for men of color, at the university. I'm like, what?
I think once I was researching Kwanzaa books, because in my past life I was a school librarian. And I was really shocked to learn that most Kwanzaa books were written by people that were not of color. So that is a very interesting point, because I guess it's like you do business with people that look like you, that you feel comfortable with. And unfortunately, sometimes the executives, the editors, the people making the sales decisions and the big publishing houses, they're kind of going with people that look like they do. So yeah, it's really important, especially in these times, that we really give voice to our people and our lived experiences.
So how many books would you say you've published through your publishing company over the last few years?
I would say 4 or 5.
Okay.
And yes, and I have some in the works. We have the visual artist I was speaking about, Dr. Clinton. He has a coloring book coming out March 1st. And so I'm really excited about that, because, that's totally different, like a coloring book, but it's his abstract designs. They're all in a circle and it's for peace and calm. And I mean, I just think, anything that we can do to help people feel peace and calm at this time is an asset. It's valuable.
Especially now. Yes. So you say you do about 4 or 5 books. Do you do this as your full-time business, or is this something you do on the side? What is Positive Press?
For me, it's my full-time business in my heart, but I do have to finance my life by working full-time somewhere else.
Okay.
As a cybersecurity program manager. I'm a certified project manager. And so I think, sometimes people kind of rate your success on whether or not you can do it full-time or not. But I think you just have to do what works for your life. I'm divorced. I had to raise my children alone. So I had to make some tough decisions. I had to pay the bills, keep the light on, keep the roof over everyone's head. So I had to continue to work full time. And then I had to do this in the evening and on the weekends. But for me, it's a full-time job, but I do work another job. So it takes a lot of commitment and dedication, like I don't have a lot of time to just watch TV and kind of veg out on the couch, but I love it, so it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. And I think that's important, because I've had my publishing company since 2010, and it been on and off in between other jobs I've had. I've done other things, but I think it's important for people to know, even if you can't get into something full time, just being able to be the outlet for someone to publish their book who may not have the
Oh, yes.
opportunity is still valuable, because
Absolutely.
people have these stories, they want to get them out, they just don't know how to do it and how to do it where it looks nice and professional, and it
Right.
represents them well, it represents you as a
Yes,
publisher
exactly.
well. I think that's very important. So
Yeah, and I would hope that people are encouraged because I know sometimes you don't start if you feel like, well, I can't just do it 100% full time. I still have to work, so it's important that we encourage other people to come in because we need as many people as possible, getting the word out and telling the stories. Absolutely.
exactly. Another thing that we're going to talk about in the podcast coming up are different people. There are people who are editors, there are people who are, copywriters, there are people who are ghostwriters. So publishing, there's a team of people out there just waiting to help get their stories told, but we're just one part of it. The publishers were just like the one part of it. Now,
Yes.
my publishing company, I'm more of a consultant, so I kind of help people set up and then they go off on their own. What do you do? Do you keep people through the whole process, give them royalties? Like, what is your
Yes.
model?
Yes. So I'm a hybrid publisher. That just means that a person comes in and shares some of the upfront costs, and then they get a royalty after the project is completed. So I do everything from the beginning to the end, outlining if people need help with the manuscript, refining the manuscript, editing, cover design, interior layout, ebooks, audiobooks, print books, everything that you can think of from beginning to end with publishing. And I have worked with people that didn't want to go all the way through to publication, but just helping them kind of refine their manuscript or come up with their ideas and outline and sketch what needs to be done.
Okay, I love it. I love it. And like I said, everybody has a purpose and a plan, and everybody has a different spectrum of where they are in their manuscript process. They may just want to figure out, okay, how do I even get started? And some people may say,
Right.
like, I'm already done. Now what do I do next? And then you're able to walk them through that. So
Yes.
I love that. And people have a confusion about self-publishing and hybrid publishing. So thanks for sharing that because I'm
Hmm.
not a hybrid. I'm more of a consultant where I help you
Okay.
do what you need to do and then you go off on your own. And I don't get any
Right.
royalties or anything like that. So they're different. I think people have different models based on what they feel comfortable with. Some people may not need
Exactly.
someone to go all the way. They just need to set up and like, okay, I'm on my own. And people may need more hand holding along the way. So
Right.
I
Right.
love it. So what
Yeah,
about
because I think it's a trade-off in terms of your time. So if you have somebody that's done it before, like myself, then you can just worry about the writing and you're kind of done. And it's just like a matter of time because it just takes so much knowledge, from copyright, ISBN, pricing, Amazon, keywords, search engine optimization, distribution, you name it, it's a lot. It's a lot.
filing the copyright, all that stuff,
Yes.
hardcover and
Yes.
softcover ISBNs,
Right.
all that stuff, going through,
Yes.
Ingram and getting the hardcovers for distributors to get through. Like it's a
Yes.
lot of things you have to learn. And some people just, that's why we get paid because people don't have the time
Right.
to want to do that learning curve.
Right.
Now, what about you? Have you written any other books, your own or you have any books coming out of your own?
So I wrote a book about diversity in school library collections because, like I said before, in a past life, I was a librarian and then I was over libraries at the district level in the local school system. And I did a lot of work with the American Library Association on their, at the time, diversity task force. So I just really felt a need for libraries to reflect the school populations that are within the schools. So that was a book that I wrote. And right now, I'm working on a book about hope this with another co-author. So it's going to be a book to encourage people to have hope. And I actually look forward to revising gems to include items about social media and digital tattoos. So I'm working on that as well.
That's great. And then I know you talked about you're a Christian, you do a lot of, Christian publishing, and your passion is helping others even based on, growing up with your mom. And so you have a nonprofit organization that you
I
started.
do.
Yeah. So it's called, tell us a little bit about that. Hope for
So it's
Tomorrow.
called Hope for Tomorrow International Incorporated. And basically, the name Hope for Tomorrow is just giving people hope for tomorrow because sometimes that's really tough. I was reading an article here in the Atlanta Journal Constitution about a woman that was living in a extended stay hotel with her family. And the kids in the background really caught my attention from the picture. There were about 3 or 4 kids, and I don't know, just felt like God was guiding me because my mother said if somebody has a problem, you go do what you can to help them. And so I actually went to the extended stay hotel, and asked, could I help the person? And I didn't have all the money because she owed a large sum of money, but I had like $100 that I was going to put in to help her. And then a very dear friend of mine came in with the other amount, and she worked with another organization to actually raise enough money to pay her rent for like 6 months. So
Oh.
when I went to pay for her rent, I noticed all the kids kind of looked a little sad. And I had some books because that's something I had that I could give to them. And they all lit up. They just were so excited to see the books. And so I felt like, okay, if I did this once, then I need to probably come back and do this again. Now I have a publishing company and a full-time job. So I try to kind of push that down and out because I'm like, I don't think I have time to do all this, but it just would not let go. So I actually went back, I formalized it into an official nonprofit corporation in the state of Georgia. And I have a board, and we actually go and do giveaways, and we give everything from books to food, school supplies, clothing, and bags of hope. And so we have plans to grow from just giving things away to actually, helping people figure out how to move from living in a hotel and just providing prayer and confidence building sessions. So it's almost like a problem that's hidden in plain sight. In Atlanta and in most major metropolitan cities, housing is extremely expensive. And if you don't have good credit, even though you're working two jobs and you're making, you know, $15 an hour, you're not going to have enough money to put down a deposit on an apartment. You're going to have a credit score that qualifies. So sometimes people really get trapped in living in a housing insecure manner, such as this. So it's just my way of helping alleviate that problem and also bringing attention to what people have to deal with and what they face, because it's not just about, what are you doing? You don't want to work, you're unemployed, but you can really be working really, really hard, catching the bus at like 4 o'clock in the morning and still unable to afford a decent place to stay.
For sure, for sure. And I think we all see people at the stoplights or whatever, and we see them, and
Right.
there are people with kids, either elderly
Yes.
people, veterans, and you kind of like, what can I do to help? You just really
Yeah.
don't know, but you took it upon yourself to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I love how you said, because I always keep books in my car too. I love how you said that you gave the kids the books and then their faces lit up. Tell me
Yes.
about growing up and as a child. Did your mom read to you, and what were some books that kind of stand out or inspired you as a child?
Yeah, like both of my parents are educators, so they were very big on reading. My father was a counselor, my mother was a Spanish teacher, and we actually would like go to the library. I think every Saturday we went to the public library. My mother would just drop us off, and I just go in there and spend the day and loved it and left. But interestingly enough, we were kind of forced to read the classics. Like I think about The Great Gatsby comes to mind in high school. So I can't say that I had a favorite book growing up, but when I became a librarian and then I wanted to share the love of reading with others, I have some favorite authors, and those are Stephanie Perry Moore and Sheila Moses. And one of the reasons why they're my favorite, in addition to what they wrote, like The Legend of Buddy Bush and Peyton Sky series, they would actually take the time to come to the school, because I always said I want to work in a school that's economically deprived, because I felt like those kids need somebody that really cared. And they would come to the school and actually have sessions with the kids, but they would also bring free books and give the
Oh,
books
wow.
to the kids. So those are my two favorite authors, and it really has to do with like their bent on, serving our community and our children.
And I love that. Now, were they local authors? Were they from the Atlanta area or?
You know what? I don't know if they actually were from Atlanta, but I mean, I was a person that would just go out. And so some of the library vendors that I work with, they would have the funds to bring them in, and then they would kind of go above and beyond and like give all of the girls books. So I'm not sure if they were actually in Atlanta, if they actually lived here, but they may. I really don't know.
And I like that because sometimes we have people come in, like Jackie Joyner Kersey came to Kalamazoo and we had our Mercy City Explorers interview her, and I bought books for the kids. But then you think about, what about the other kids who are there who may not have been able to
Right.
get the book and get it signed, by her. So for authors to have that opportunity to give books to kids is valuable, because it's not just a
Yes.
book that someone gave you. You're able to put a face with, like, I met this author,
Right.
I know this author. And now with their cell phones, they can take a picture with the author, and
Right.
it's
Right.
becomes really special, and they can see themselves, one day as an
Yeah.
author.
Yeah, and they bring it to life for the students. And I mean, that has been so many years ago, but I can remember it just like it was yesterday, because they just bring the story to life and they explain the process of how they wrote. And it was just very impactful.
Right. I love it. I love it. So we've had a good conversation. We talked about your publishing company, your nonprofit, books that you read growing up. And we like to do something fun on Girls Talk Books, where because we're all storytellers in our own right, we look at our lives now where we are and we can kind of reflect on, as a little girl, what did I want to do or what did I want to become? And so we do this little fun thing on Girls Talk Books called Once Upon a Time. And it allows you just to kind of fill in the blanks about the story of your life. So, you ready?
Okay.
All right, here we go. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who...
Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived in Atlanta, and she wanted to make a big difference in the world. Her father set in during the civil rights movement. So he was always talking about standing up for something, standing up for the people, and being conscious in all that you think and do.
And
one day she went off to college, to that great university, Florida A&M University, and decided that she wanted to major in business.
And because of that,
she chose a career in corporate America. But plans changed when her, I guess, lineage started popping up. Even though I told my parents I would never be public educators like them, that's what I became.
and because of that,
I saw a need in the community to give stories of hope and movement to students. So that's when my writing sort of started to begin.
Okay, until finally,
I realized that there is power in the printed word. And so even though others told me no, told my mother no, told us that nobody is interested in reading about helping Black and brown girls, we went ahead and wrote our own book and started our own company to really just spread hope and help people understand how to access their own power.
Whoa, I love it. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I think it's important for us to tell our story. And it doesn't have to be like a long biography, 500 pages. It can be simple enough to where we can put it in a nutshell, what happened in our life and, what we've become because of it. So thank you for that. Now, is there anything else you want to add that I didn't mention or didn't talk about that you'd like to share?
No, I just wanted to, really encourage people that have stories to step forward, not necessarily with me, but just to make sure that they tell their story, because it's just so important that everything and all of our stories are represented, particularly in the age of AI and, large language models that are based on all the text that already exists. It's going to be very important for us to tell our stories and make sure our young people know our stories and they are solid in who they are and knowing who they can become.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So tell us how they can get in touch with you if they wanted to find out more about publishing through your company.
Okay, so you can reach me at positivepushpress.com, and I'm also at michelleeasley.com.
All right, Michelle. Well, thanks again. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I'm glad Aubrey connected us, and I love the work you do. And if there are people I know who could use your help, I know people in Atlanta who are looking to write, so I can put them your way too. So I appreciate your time and thank you for all you do. And we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And thank you for all you do for having the courage to step out here and make sure people know about it.
This was a great conversation with Michelle Easley on filling the void in publishing. To learn more, visit her website, positivepushpress.com. This episode was hosted by me, Sonya Hollins, and produced by M2 McMillan Media. Are you an author with an amazing story to share? Or do you work in the publishing industry with insight that can inspire others? Well, we want you on Girls Talk Books, where voices matter. Or are you an aspiring author with a story to tell? Well, we can help with that too. Visit girlstalkbooks.com to learn more.